You get a very early taste of coaching, don't you? At 26 with Gallowesians. How did that come about, and how did that fit into the phase of your career? At 26 years of age, to be starting to look at coaching is quite young, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I was always destined to be a coach. I'd captained a lot of teams, often coaches that coached me, would ask my opinion and advice about things. So, yeah, that was sort of towards the end of an All Black tour. Galwegians were looking for a player coach. I said I was 26. I was teaching back in New Zealand at the time, and said, yeah, it'd be great life experience. So resigned.
Have boots will travel.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Resigned my teaching job. People in Ireland couldn't believe that I resigned my job to go, for 5 or 6 months there, because I think at that time, unemployment in Ireland was about 20% and interest rates were about 20%. But that's kind of, I suppose, the Kiwi way, really, just an adventure.
Have a go.
Yeah, have a go. And so, I did that for 4 years, going backwards and forwards. The only downside was 8 winters in a row. But, it kind of really got me on the coaching journey. And I suppose the teacher training that I'd had kind of in the organisation, the structure and things, and then how did I apply some of the things that I wanted to do.
Did you have any chat? I mean, because it strikes me, and I can't help it, Warren, I equate a lot of sports to football, and not always in the most positive way. And by that I mean, it strikes me in rugby that it's a culture that's steeped in respect, whether it's between the players themselves or whether it's recognition of authority. But the translation and the respect that's needed to be a coach at 26 years of age, were you quickly able to get that from your charges and the people that you were working with?
I think the fact that I was an All Black, I probably
got some cachet.
Yeah. And that's kind of, you got a little bit of credit in the bank to start with. And for me as a
but you know as well as I do that credit, as soon as you open your mouth and say something that's bloody stupid, the players will be looking at it from a different perspective.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I always promised myself, and always did, as a coach, that I would never coach the things that I didn't like as a player. So I didn't. Such as I didn't mind training hard.
Right. That's a prerequisite, though, isn't it?
Yeah. But I hated long training sessions.
Right.
If training sessions went on for too long and they lost the intensity,
right,
I got bored.
So do a brilliant 90 minutes rather than an average 2 hours.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Or 60 minutes rather than an hour and a half. Kind of. If I know, and I kind of went through the game had gone, and I was lucky enough to have a couple of good coaches that probably at that time brought in organisation and structure and planning to sessions. So and that's my teaching background. I'd plan a session and say, right, boys, this is what we're doing today. We're going to go for 60 minutes or 70 minutes. We're going to be doing this drill, and pretty much keep to times. So they knew exactly what they're doing. This is the intensity we're looking for. I wanted to make it enjoyable. I wanted to make it fun, and I wanted them, with the amateur, I wanted them to come back. And in those times, that was the biggest challenge.
But was it an easy transition for you?
Surprisingly, it was. Well, it probably helped with the first when I went to Galwegian. I think we won our first 13 games in a row, so that kind of that helps.
Yeah. That beds you in nice and easy, doesn't it?
And the first day I arrived there, I said to the manager, how many people are you expecting at training? He said, about 30. I said, okay. So the thing that happened, it was probably the best thing for me and for them as well, is that on the Saturday we had a game. I couldn't play the first couple of games, so on the Saturday I said, right, we'll meet at 10:30, and the bus leaves the club rooms at 11 o'clock, and we had I think about an hour and a half to go to a place called Sligo on the bus. At 10:30, when we were supposed to be there to meet, there was me and 4 other players.
Right.
At 11 o'clock, there was 13 of us. And I went, right, bugger this, I'm a Kiwi. We're on the bus. I said, we haven't got anything. I said, I don't care.
We'll go what we got, yeah.
Just get on the bus and go. And so a few players arrived a little bit later, and they got in their cars and picked up a couple of stragglers, and they ended up turning up But when I got there, I got in front of the bus. Said, I've just come from an All Black tour. I know the game's amateur.
Yeah.
If I go back to New Zealand and say we had a team meeting at
And you
10:30,
lot didn't turn up, yeah.
and 11 o'clock the bus was going, we drove out at the gate with 13 players, that'd be a laughing stock.
Yeah.
So either I get on the plane tomorrow and go back, or we decide to take this seriously.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about stupid serious. So find all the players that were late.
What was the reaction? When, you know, obviously, because if they're coming, if you're saying turn up at 10:30 and they didn't, it's obviously because they felt they didn't have to, right?
Well, I think this is the way they always did things, and they didn't have any.
So what was their reaction to this new sheriff in town?
Yeah. Well, I know a few of the older players who were a lot older than me at the time, sort of late 20s, early 30s, kind of looked at each other as sitting in the back of the bus and going, "Oh my God, we've got a right one here." It was kind of, they told me about that afterwards. And they've actually become great mates of mine and things, and some of the stories that we tell and stuff. But yeah, they bought into it, understood, because we're all on the same page. You know, everyone understood what the boundaries were. If you understand what the boundaries are, then you go a long way to making sure that you don't have to deal with any issues. It's black and white. There's no grey. You know?
If you're fair and consistent with people, they know where they stand. If you've got the courage of your convictions, you deal with people properly, and you say what you mean and mean what you say, there'll be some people that won't follow it, and there'll be some people that you don't want to follow it because they're not worth your time anyway.
Yeah.
But I think if you're clear in life, I think most people can be, and in sports, I think that's very specific, because I think if you want winners, you've got to be able to tell them good and bad, right?
Yeah, and sometimes you got to follow through with some of the things that you say. I remember 2011, we put a curfew on being back at the hotel at 1 o'clock. So we had night games, 7:30, game would finish at 9:30. We wouldn't get back to the hotel until about 11 o'clock, and would say to the guys, look, if you want to go for a drink, you're there, but you're back in the hotel by 1.
Who's that, with the Welsh national team?
With the Welsh team, yeah. I don't care who you are. If you're out, even if you're drinking water or orange juice, if you're out to 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning,
you're not going to be fit for purpose.
And it doesn't look right.
Yeah.
Okay. And we said, look, if you come back at 1 o'clock and the bar's still open, you can have a beer.
Yeah.
But I want you back there. And I said, if you're not back by 1 o'clock, then keep walking to the airport, because that's where you're going to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
the reaction to that was?
They were all back by 1 o'clock. Yeah. Because, you know, that, and, you know, thankfully I didn't have to, you know, do that. But sometimes you've got
to be prepared to do it.
Yeah.
You can't say something to somebody and then not do it, because the moment you do that, you're done, right?
Yeah, and you lose respect. Yeah. And, you know, I think they've seen me in the past that have been prepared to make tough calls and tough decisions and stand by them, you know. And probably the biggest thing for me, and people often you get coaches they talk the talk but they don't walk the walk. Mm-hmm. And for me, one thing that I always say to all our players whenever they come in, about how privileged and how lucky we are to be involved in professional sport and to do what we do. But the most important thing, the thing that's more important than rugby, is your family.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever issues that you've got at home, or if your partner's having a scan, or someone's sick, or a death in the family, whatever, your dog's sick, you know, come and see us, and we can help support things. Yeah, even if there's issues and relationship issues. And because for me, by giving what seems to them a lot, by me giving a little, I get so much more. Is
that because you believe in that principle, or is it because you know the value of what it means to them?
A bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of both. I had the experience in Galway. I didn't realise until recently. Our first daughter, Shauna, she was born in Galway, and we didn't know at the time. We had scans and stuff. She was born with spina bifida.
Right.
And they'd spent a lot of money as a club, and we were going through some playoffs and promotion playoffs. And those playoffs were coming up, and so she was in the hospital, and members of the club came to me and said, "Oh, you got to go home." And my first reaction was, "We've got these playoffs coming up," and they went, "No, your family's more important." So we went home and we got us settled and stuff. And about 3 weeks later, I rang the club up and said, you want me to come back in the playoffs? And they said, would you do that? And I said, yeah, I would. And it wasn't until I realised what they had done for me that I wanted to give it back.
Yeah.
You know, and so I came back with three playoff games we had to play. I played in the first two, he won them. I didn't have to play in the last one and flew back to New Zealand. And so I said, like, if things are right at home with the players, and
it's their base, isn't it?
Yeah, and their partners are happy, and they feel that they're being looked after, then I get a much better product at training, and I get a better performance in the weekends as well.